that we won't see up here. Okay, keep that in mind so that we can come back to that at the end. So we're going to introduce our panelists now. Our debaters, please give a warm welcome to the Director of Product Management at HTC, Adar Walia, and the Global Director of Digital Innovation at Kimberly-Clark, Mariano Maluf. Come on up, gentlemen. All right. Both of our gentlemen up here are going to begin this debate and present their argument. Adar, you are first with the... What's that? Yes. Actually, oh, I'm sorry, you are. Yes, you are. We just had you switch there. Okay. There's a handheld for you. There you go, sir.
All right. So is VR more than just a game? So when you hear the words virtual reality, most people picture a very niche community of gamers and enthusiasts who are trying to get their hands on the latest tech. And when you hear a lot of experts talking about VR in that context, it's very tempting to think that VR is just a game. Well, games are great, but VR, I think, is much, much more than that. It's not a fad. It's here to stay, and the possibilities of VR are endless. And VR, so I work in the industry, and I see VR expanding very rapidly into many industries like education, productivity, science, engineering, and many others. So I hope in the next few minutes, I see you have a lot of no votes. I hope in the next few minutes I can convince at least some of you to think about VR in a different way and more than just a gaming. So let's start with some numbers. So experts predict that gaming would actually be a $180 billion market in 2022. So in the next 5 years, $180 billion market. And what about VR? VR is expected to be $117 billion market in the same time frame. So pretty heavy growth. And most of that is going to come from business adoption. It's not going to come from gaming. Also, according to virtual reality statistics, about 10% of virtual reality users today worldwide are hardcore gamers and early adopters. Most of the remaining usage, even today, comes from all kinds of innovators and users in other fields. And I think this has nowhere to go but up in the next few years. So the potential is huge, and the mass adoption of VR, I think, is inevitable. We need to resolve, there are some hurdles, of course, and we need to resolve those hurdles, which I think are going to be resolved in the next few years, very likely, and I'll share with you some of my thoughts on why I think so. So virtual reality as a technology, it's been around for about 50 years, but it's the advancement in computing power, mobility, as well as interactive technologies that is delivering the promise of VR and making it very, very accessible right now for the first time. Currently, as many of you would know, that VR technology, it requires very bulky and expensive headsets. You need to be tethered to a powerful PC to make it work. But I think as the PC performance goes up, as the software is optimized, and as we achieve true mobility, VR offers a true promise, and it'll offer some game-changing solutions for both consumers as well as businesses. One of the things that's happening today is that we are at the convergence of AI, AR, VR, and 5G. So 5G, we all know it's coming, and with 5G, we'll see a whole new era of experiences that can be delivered to VR headsets that are not possible today. With low latency, high-speed bandwidth, and with stable 5G connections, the experience will be more and more immersive. We will be able to use real-time edge computing as well as cloud computing to do a lot of the heavy processing in the cloud. And the device power consumptions will go down. So VR and AR will no longer be constrained by the local hardware and storage. And I think that'll bring the form factor down. That'll have all kinds of problems that we're trying to tackle in the VR industry. It'll solve those and make VR much more prevalent. We'll be able to share and experience the content in much more real time. The next technology, of course, AI is coming, and it's going to make every machine, every device around us smarter. we'll be able to take advantage of data and processing power again in the cloud and with AI. So we'll be able to add AI along with 5G to almost all things that we interact with, and that includes VR. And that combination, I think, would again help us doing a lot of the processing in the cloud and take advantage of stable network connections and bandwidth and very thin and very small form factor in users' hands to be able to truly improve the adoption. Then there are technologies like gesture recognition, eye and facial tracking, as well as voice recognition, which will also improve the immersiveness and the quality of experiences that you see in the VR today. So I believe with these technologies combined, AR, VR will have a huge impact in future. Now I'm going to go through some of the examples where we'll see real-time examples where AR, VR can have an impact. And education and training is a big one. So we'll be able to use AR, VR as a portal, and we can use all of our senses, including our body, to experience and learn. And that makes learning much more efficient, and it's proven that it's much better for attention than just reading in a book. And I can imagine, my kids not just reading about dinosaurs or ancient civilization in history books, but actually being able to teleport themselves in that era and be in that environment and learn directly from experience living in that reality. Combine that with AR, and we'll be able to personalize your experience and send it down the data pipe based on assessing each individual's needs. And that, again, would be transformational for the VR technology. Now, another field I want to talk about is healthcare. So VR is already enhancing the quality of healthcare. The first time ever live-streamed VR surgery took place on a 70-year-old colon cancer patient in 2016. And that demonstrates how VR could be used in healthcare education and training. The VR applications for healthcare are boundless, all the way from improving diagnosis to training doctors, as well as recommended treatment and patient plans. So we are working with a partner, one of our partners today. They have a technology to use actual diagnostic images from CT scans as well as ultrasounds, and they can construct 3D images of a patient's anatomy. And that can be used by doctors to do all kinds of diagnosis. So this is all happening today. There are virtual models that are built by hospitals like Stanford, which are being used to train new and experienced surgeons about more efficient ways of locating tumors, placing surgical incisions, and practice difficult procedures all in real time, even before the surgery ever happens. Organizations like NASA, they are building experiences like a panoramic Mars experience, which can put you directly on the red planet, which very few of us would be able to get to in our lifetime. So as you can see, there are experiences even today in all these different areas that exist, and I think that's going to transform in next few years. Another great example is military. So military has been using VR to train soldiers around the world, train soldiers in environments that are difficult to simulate, that are dangerous, and are very expensive, and VR allows you to do that. Then there are companies like Walmart and Verizon, which are using VR to train thousands of employees. I think Walmart is training about 17,000 employees in like 4,700 different locations. Similar, Verizon has a similar story. It's used in construction companies, architecture firms, manufacturer firms to improve productivity and collaboration. So there are enormous use cases even today. And I believe in future, you will be able to build your kitchen in VR. You'll be able to customize your new car, visualize your home, or even work and collaborate and maybe even do a deal across the world with your colleague and your partners. Virtual reality allows us to do all that. So as I wrap this up, I can't wait to see all the magical things we can do with virtual reality and how we can impact lives. And I would, since virtual reality is a very immersive experience, but we don't have the setup here, so I wanted to show a quick clip to get everybody an idea of one of the examples of an impact what VR can make. Thank you.
Oh, wow.
How was it able to ski again?
She's supposed to. I was in skis until I was 15 years old. You made the thing I'm watching. VR is going to be a very nice experience for anybody who's handicapped. I think you're going to open new doors.
So it is deeply moving to see how VR allowed him to feel live again. And there are numerous use cases like that. So I would leave you with one question. If with VR you could be anyone, do anything, achieve anything, what would you do? Thank you.
Mariano, stage is yours.
It's really easy to come after that. Thanks a lot. How's everyone doing? We were debating whether or not to do this by the poll, but I guess we didn't get the app set up for that. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, just the hand.
All right.
There you go.
Very good.
There
All
you
right.
go.
So I don't know which question to answer. Is it this one or the other one? So it's more than a game. So let me just say that. So that's going to be confusing for you, but you already voted. The other question is it going to be the top emerging technology for 2019-2020? That's a resounding no, in my opinion. In the voice of a gaming company CEO, VR is a game that is going to, no pun intended, it's going to take years, not months, to develop to what I would consider a mass industry. There are substantial problems that need to be dealt with, and beyond the gaming aspect, I think you have fundamental human-based. By the way, I don't see the timer, so that's on you if I keep talking for 15 minutes.
I got you. I got you.
Just kidding. So I think there are fundamental human-level issues that are not considered. And you get into all this cognitive biases and cognitive errors in sort of forecasting what the technology could do. And if you're curious about biases, great book, Thinking Slow and Thinking Fast. There are hundreds of those. And this is a perfect example of innovation bias and exaggeration on the impact that this will have. And not to dismiss the video, that's impressive. But I think we tend to err on the overestimation of what technologies can do without taking care of the human level issues. What I'm talking about is basic stuff like biology. How many people here have used helmets, VR helmets? So quite a few of you. Would you, from 1 to 5, how uncomfortable would you say it is? 5 being the top. By the way, did you notice that I just embedded a bias into the way I asked the question? I didn't ask you about your experience. I already said that it was uncomfortable. So anyway, you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it. But the point is, it is uncomfortable, right? And there are serious issues about this, and that's why most people don't gravitate towards that, at least from a mass level, mass adoption perspective. What happens if you are nearsighted or farsighted, or your vision in one eye is different than the other eye? Those are fundamental issues. And Moore's Law will get us there. So I agree with Brennan in terms of the miniaturization. That's something that we can count on. So in 1995, there was a VR headset called VFX1 that sold for $695. That was 32 Moore laws ago, right? So basically 4.3 billion factor of order of magnitude in terms of computational power, and we still can't solve the problem. So yes, VR is here to stay. I agree with you. I'm a geek at heart, so this is, being the no guy is hard. But it's been around and it's been here to stay for the past 40, 50 years, since Sutherland and Sproul created that huge thing with the CRT's head-mounted display in MIT. So I think there are fundamental issues that are still unsolved, and it will take many, many years for them to be solved. Now so enough about the issues with the comfort level and pricing. Again, Moore's Law will take care of that. I'm not worried about that piece. But there's a signaling also that's shifting the interest from XR, right, mixed reality, augmented reality, et cetera. And if you track the VC funding, It peaked in 2016 or so, and it was about 860 million just for VR type solutions. And in 2018, anyone knows what happened? Anyone venture to say? Again, no pun intended. Anyone venture to say how much it is or was last year? Went up or down? Let's start there. Went down. A number, anyone? From 860? 280. Very good. So that's a very strong signal that while VCs in the Valley believe that it is true, that it is here to stay, and it has tremendous potential, and I do have some examples, and some of those are the same you gave. They're shifting the investment to AR solutions. And from the panel, I heard most were AR solutions. I think United Way has a VR solution, but that was on an exhibit basis and entertainment related. So I think now the AR funding is about 860, and again VR 280. So to me that's a clear signal that it's there's too much hype still with the technology. Now in terms of is more than a game, I'm going against my grain here, but Verizon and Walmart are using this. And what is cool to me, or what the promise of VR is really when you start doing combinatorics with other technologies, like location-based, VR, IoT, haptics, fully immersive technologies, and that's going to take even longer to realize, in my opinion. But that's where the real promise is. It's never the failure of the technology will get us there. It's always a failure of imagination of the stuff that we could do. But the examples of, so Verizon is training people, as you accurately said, they're training store managers to deal with robberies. And so it's a very specific, very visceral type of experience, if you've ever been in a robbery, hopefully not. But they were doing all the usual training, right, with the store managers. They hired actors to, do scenes, and they went through PowerPoint slides and manuals and things like that. After they did the VR training, actually, they were 95% of the people that took the training said now they had a much better understanding. But again, that's a niche usage, right, for specific training. So education, yes, it's a great use case, but only on specific narrow niche applications. The other example is Walmart. Yes, I agree. What they're doing, though, there is, I think it's interesting in the sense that they are merging analytics and VR. So, for example, if they're training a trainee that's going to be cleaning the floors, for example, they can tell by immersing that person with the helmet if there's a bucket on the floor, if they actually lean and actually watch the bucket on the floor. So they can take the analytics and actually provide that information. And they've done research that they know that if that doesn't happen in the VR scenario, it won't happen in real life. So that person now can get an evaluation based on that experience. So again, I think VR on its own is not as interesting as VR combined with other technologies, particularly analytics. And I'm not going to say which, in my opinion, is the top emerging trend for 2019 or 2020, unless you ask me. But it's not VR. And I'm not sure how much time I have, but that's my closing.
Get about a minute left.
All right.
Yeah.
What else can I say? Oh, yes. Let me bring up why we're here, actually. I think the VC peaked in 2016 if you trace what happened with Zuckerberg acquiring Oculus Rift. So Oculus was created in 2012, I believe, right? So they acquired Oculus for $3 billion, $2 billion plus $1 billion of retaining the talent, right? In 2014. And in 2016, Microsoft launched HoloLens. And the founder of Oculus Rift, Palmer Luckey, was featured in Time magazine in 2014, right, remember? I think that's what pushed the boundaries or the collective belief that VR was going to be all that. And Zuckerberg said, actually, that he wanted 1 billion people using their helmet, their VR gear. And just to give you a perspective, that was about 5 years ago or so. Last year, 350,000 units were shipped. Just to give you a sense of magnitude. Oculus Rift. We all have Google. You can look it up. But the point is, in comparison with other other elements like PlayStation units, right? 17 million of those shipped. Smartphones, 1.4 billion. So again, from a mass adoption perspective, his vision is already 4 or 5 years old. He said it was a platform play. He believed it was a platform play. The next iteration of the social experience will be in VR. He believed in it. He hired a professor in Stanford to advise him on the acquisition. But very, very far away from realizing his vision of 1 billion people using VR helmets. So I think we're again, years and years away from it, except for some very specific niche use cases like the ones I mentioned.
All right. Mariano, thank you very much. We've got about 5 minutes for questions for our panelists, debaters. Anybody got any questions for them? Yes, sir. There you go.
Hey, well done, well represented on both sides. I feel like VR has been tossed around, by the way, James Morales, American Express, VR has been tossed around as a buzzword. What are some practical use cases in the servicing industry that you may have in mind for VR?
So I touched upon some of the use cases in my talk earlier. So I think VR, yes, you're right. VR has been overhyped and over-marketed term. And in that way, I totally agree that 2019-20, it's too early. Yes, it's not going to be a dominant technology. But it's slowly and steadily making its headway in all of these areas, right? Primary use cases being healthcare, manufacturing, education, training, right? Those are the 4 solid use cases that we see today. But then there are all kinds of use cases. There are, VR devices being used in, courtrooms, VR devices being used in public law enforcement and safety industries. So there are all kinds of use cases. Specific to service industry, I'm not familiar with that particular industry, but I believe training is something, if you have stores or certain parts of the job that are difficult to simulate or hard to train or dangerous situations that service employees have to go through, that might be a good use case for service industry.
Yes, sir. Coming to you. Hey, getting my laps in, right?
Hi, Mike Izzetta, HEB. Oops. Can I get a cleanup on aisle 1? Little grocery store humor. So I agree with both of you. I don't think 2019, 2020 is going to be anywhere near mass adoption. So I think you're absolutely right on that. I worked at Microsoft for the past 3 years and helped to launch HoloLens and kind of mixed reality rather at retail locations around the world. And when we went into retail locations and saw people actually demoing these products, myself as one of them, there are so many things that still need to be solved for. There's just, the vertigo that people get, and people aren't used to it, and it just feels funny. It's too big, and, some devices need sensors around the room, and that sort of thing. So those are being solved for over time, and I think as we get, the more micro it gets with HoloLens 2 and future iterations of that kind of technology, we're going to get closer to mass adoption. But my question is for Adar. Do you think, what do you see as a horizon for actual use in a retail environment, where I know there are some companies out there that are doing it, but to be able to shop virtually for the products, instead of just going onto an e-commerce website, you can actually pick it up, turn it around, have a look at it, and feel like a little bit of a closer sense to the product or service that you want to purchase. Where do you see, what is the timeline horizon you see for that actually happening?
Yeah, so I think we all would agree that 2019, we're already most of the year through. 2019-20 is way too early. Yes, you're right. There are some problems that we still need to figure out, and we are solving those problems. I think mobility is one of them. But Oculus came out with a version that doesn't need to be tethered. There are other problems that as we get these 5G and we get AI, some of these other problems are going to get solved. What I'm seeing and being in the industry, what we are talking to our partners and customers, it seems like in the next 2 to 5 years, 2 to 3 years rather. So in manufacturing, for example, which is related industry to retail, about 45% of the companies say they want to try VR and bring it in their business in next 2 years. And if you look at next 5 years, almost about 65 to 70% businesses say they want to try and incorporate in the next 5 years. Retail actually is a very interesting space because a lot of companies in retail are already trying the technology. And again, when I talk about VR, I know there's a distinction between AR, VR, there's mixed reality. I kind of put all of them in the same bucket. I think it's just different flavors. And eventually, I don't think it's one or the other. I think there's a place for both AR and VR to coexist. In fact, as you've seen with mixed reality, they might even merge in future. There are devices out there today which lets you experience either, same experience, you can see it either in AR or VR. So it could coexist, and the future could look something very different. For example, we're already talking about our phones being replaced and having some kind of smart devices in future. So there will be evolution. There are still challenges to be solved, but I believe in next 3 to 5 years, we'll see much bigger adoption of the technology.
All right, last question right over here, Andy.
Yeah, so we've gone big in AR, in VR. We think that AR is also going to be huge. We've just elected to go the VR path. The struggle, and what you've talked about is really B2B. That's what I've heard both of you talk about, is where the use cases are today. And I get that you need adoption to have the B2C component. But we've built an award-winning app, and the challenge I have is the business model. We can't figure out how to make money in VR, right? Other than doing enterprise sales, which, when I'm talking to Oculus on Friday and trying to sell bundles, enterprise bundles, I don't know if you guys understand the economics, but it's not healthy. The Oculus Go you buy in the store for $200, they sell to me for $800 to do a B2B transaction. And so we've been struggling with the business model. So how much, or what insight can you share around business VR specific business models? And how much of the adoption problem do you think is tied to the I'll say lack of business model?
So I think, again, what's happening right now is one of the very early use cases of VR specifically was consumer, and to a large extent even AR was consumer. And the reason for that being the first generation, and even to some extent today, the devices require a very heavy PC, very high-powered PC to run. And a lot of the gamers have those PCs already, so it was an easy sell to the gamers, as well as they are more willing to invest in more high-tech equipment. But more and more, again, we are seeing a lot of enterprises trying to get into VR. If they haven't tried already, they are looking for the technology to see how they can apply in their industry. Like we have a lot of people here from innovation groups in various companies, and I've talked to at least 5 or 6 who are actually either using VR or planning to use VR, right? The challenge I think that we have seen is because it's a very different technology, and it's hard to get true potential unless you actually experience it. So a lot of companies and again, the decision makers, they have to experience VR, which is, I think, a lot of what's happening with the gaming and arcade and movie theaters and all of these experiences right now. A lot of these companies, a lot of these individuals who are decision makers, and they haven't experienced it. But I think over time that's happening. But I think the other thing is, once they experience it and they learn about capabilities of VR, applying them in their business and solving, just like with any other technology, how do you use VR to solve a particular problem in a particular industry, right? A lot of us are talking about AI as well today, but people are still trying to figure out how to apply AI in their particular industry. So it's no different. And I'd be happy to talk after the session, but if you have a particular solution, thinking about how do you apply in a particular business scenario. For example, this Verizon and Walmart example we were talking about, there's a company called Striver out of California. They have built this platform on VR device that all they do is just provide training platform and software. So they work with the likes of Walmarts and Verizons, they work with athletes, and they work with any kind of companies, and they're solving the training problem. So I would say just focus on what problem you're trying to solve in what industry and build a solution that has demand right now. There are certain industries, of course, that are better, fast adopters and ready to jump in, versus some industries maybe not yet.
Was your question on business model for D2C?
Both.
Both. So
I get the B2B a little bit more in the example of the training company, and we sell B2B. We do some B2B work. The economics are hard because of the hardware. The only one that works is Oculus Go because of the price points. Most people can't afford anything else, especially if you're selling installs into, right? It's different if you're training and you're going to basically go in, bring your own devices, someone does it, you leave. But in the B2C world in particular, it's an app store type world, but it's hard for me to make money there, right? So we can't figure out, well,
yeah, VR is really hard on D2C. I think AR is a much more fruitful route to follow. But in terms of getting buy-in internally, what UPS did, I think, is good. They were struggling to train call center agents in Asia to understand what was the life of a truck driver in the US. The concept of a driveway and the street architecture and all that was really hard. So they created very easy to do content for the cardboard type VR device. Very easy to do, very fast. They created alignment and buy-in. And now they went the full route to full VR gear, and they're using that to train drivers on safety on the road in the UK and Germany. So that's one way to get buy-in with quick and fast prototyping, fail forward, learn fast, and then scale when it's needed. But VR for consumer or D2C, it's extremely hard.
Great questions, everybody. We are quickly running out of time, so I want to get back to the voting. Are you guys ready for that? All right. So here again, instructions on how to get up there so you can vote. And you will be casting your vote on the question, is VR the most emerging tech of 2019-2020? When you're ready, we will switch over. So select my agenda, select the session, select live polling, and once we move to the live polling question, votes are coming in. Right now, we are at, is VR the biggest emerging tech of 2019-2020? The yeses have 27%. The noes have 73%. Harriet, what was the original? 78.23. All right. Yeah, and we're all in. Yes, 26%. No, 74%. Change some minds. Change some minds. There you go. Nice job, gentlemen. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. A couple of reminders about what is ahead. First, if you haven't given some feedback in your app, please do so. It's imperative that we know just how you guys are going through your experience. And up pops the next part.